We're going to stay with the art history theme now, and today the Parisian neighborhood of Montparnasse is more often associated with the much maligned office tower there, built in 1973. But in the early 20th century, the district was famous for being the center of an international community of artists. We're going to take a closer look at the history of the area and the revival of a hidden gem called Cité Falguière, now with Dr. Stephanie Nadalo, who is a professor at Parsons, Paris, and a guide for Paris Muse. Hi, Stephanie.
Hello, Genie. Thanks for having me.
As always, it's great to have you on the show. So start off first by telling us what made Montparnasse such a vibrant hub for artists in the early 20th century?
Certainly. So in the early 1900s, Paris was the place to be for artists interested in experimental and avant-garde styles. Now, previously, Montmartre in the north had been the center of the action, but by the 19-teens, this shifted south to Montparnasse. So artists like Picasso, Brancusi, and Modigliani were all attracted to the vibrant cafe culture. There were numerous art academies nearby, but most importantly, Montparnasse offered them what artists needed most, which was access to affordable studio space.
Right, and that's why communities like the Cité Falguière were so important back then.
Absolutely. So many of these artists came to Paris with big dreams, but very limited financial resources. So communities like Cité Falguière were founded with them in mind. So starting in the 1870s, a number of affordable art ateliers were constructed in a little cul-de-sac. Now, by 1906, this had expanded to over 30 artist ateliers. And there was a large villa which actually acted as a kind of dormitory for artists and artist models. Now, eventually, the whole city is going to be named, or the whole street, named Cité Falguière in honor of the sculptor Alexandre Falguière.
And I imagine having so many artists concentrated in one area must have been incredibly stimulating. Talk us through some of the notable artists who came out of that time.
Absolutely. There are hundreds of French and foreign artists who I could mention. Just to name a few highlights, we had Gauguin, the French artist, the Italian artist Modigliani, his dear friend, the Belarusian painter Soutine, and even the Japanese artist Foujita. So if you think of these names, it was an incredibly international community of artists. And in fact, a number of them are going to be quite prominent in what we call the École de Paris, which is essentially an art term that critics designed to describe the important role that foreigners played within Parisian avant-garde art circles.
So what happened to the Cité Falguière in later years?
So it was still thriving in the 1960s when urbanization and gentrification radically transformed the neighborhood. So we know that a number of art ateliers that were historic were unfortunately bulldozed and replaced with modern buildings. A few that did survive and were then turned into private lofts.
Right, but fortunately, one of these ateliers, so the Cité Falguière, survives today. It's an active art space today. Tell us a bit more about that.
Absolutely. So the spirit of Cité Falguière lives on in Atelier 11, which of course was also featured in Soutine's famous painting from 1916. And this is an active art space which still hosts artists and art professionals for short-term residencies. Now it's now run by two nonprofit organizations, one which is dedicated to the history of the neighborhood and art community, and another entitled Les Arts, Artists in Residence, which really focuses on the contemporary art programming. So just for example, since 2021, Les Arts has launched a pilot program with over 70 different artists from 35 different countries who have stayed at the atelier. And really both of these organizations are dedicated to the idea that art can be a powerful connector for intercultural dialogue. And I'm in fact quite honored to be one of the volunteers and art professionals helping to keep this legacy alive.
Right, because after nearly 150 years of history, the atelier obviously must be in need of a big restoration.
Yes, it definitely needs some love and support. And our plan is to restore the historic facade and to renovate the interior so it can better accommodate the needs of contemporary artists.
So recently, Atelier 11 or Atelier 11 has celebrated some big milestones in that struggle to get to its former glory.
Absolutely. So in 2022, we were lucky to get the Fondation du Patrimoine, who put some seed money into financing the facade restoration. And then in 2023, we got recognition from Île-de-France as a site of regional interest. So these, we are incredibly fortunate to have these French institutions support us, but to really be able to finance the next 150 years of history, we need to continue to fundraise. And so recently, we have partnered partnered with the Fondation de France and also Myriad Alliance, which allows us to accept tax-deductible donations from almost any country in the world. We've also recently launched a call for international partnership so that other cultural and academic institutions can actually join us and benefit from this historic site.
It's such a great cause, keeping art history alive. And what about the public? What about people like me? Can I go visit the Cité Falguière?
Okay, so this is a space for artists to live and work. So it's not open every day to the public, but we love welcoming visitors for multiple cultural events. For example, every year we participate in European Heritage Days. And that's when the public can, of course, come and see the historic atelier, but also meet our contemporary artists. And it's really this dual experience of past and present. That's what makes the unique living heritage of this site so amazing.
Oh, thank you so much, Stephanie, for telling us a bit more about all of this. Good luck with all of your future plans. I'm looking forward to going to visit myself. And if you, ahead of the opening of Cité Falguière more to the public, want to go on an art history tour, I highly recommend Stephanie Nadalo and all of her colleagues at Paris Muse. Be sure to check them out on parismuse.com. Stephanie, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you, Genie.
All right, stay with us here on France 24. We're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with more of your world news just after this.